I've been using ROG Phone for quite some time, especially the ROG Phone 5, which I almost daily drive it for about 2 years or so until the release of the ROG Phone 7. And now I'm switching over to the 7 because of their new features, updates that makes me go all over the moons because of all those features. And today I'm going to talk about it. The number one features I like on the ROG Phone, the macro function and background mode. Macro is one of the most, I would say, interesting feature for gamers because depending on what kind of game you play, sometimes macro can help you do a lot of tasks, especially when you just use a single button to do some complex command to allow the game to do something that is sometimes required to do multiple taps also. So in my case, the ROG Phone actually comes with the Armoury Crate software whereby they have included the macro functionality. So the latest update of the Armoury Crate actually changes the interface for the Game Genie, whereby you need to swipe from the top left or the top right corner to bring up the interface. When it comes to the macro functionality, pressing the macro button on the right side of the Game Genie control panel will bring you into this macro interface. So how this actually works is that you can see I already have a couple of pre-recorded macro functionality. But before we go into that, first thing I need to teach you how to record your macro. There's a plus button at the top right corner there. When you press on it, there will be an record button overlay appear on the screen. You can move this button around if you want to, because sometimes this button may block whichever element you're trying to press inside the game. So the control is pretty easy. You just press the record button, then you can see the record text is flashing in red. It means that they are now recording all your touch controls on the game. Okay, let's just put this as an example. I want to do a macro whereby it helps me to collect the resources in the game. So because all the buttons are located on the top left corner, I have to move the button away. So I can move it aside, let's say here. So let's just press record. So now the macro is recorded. I can save it as a random or whichever name you want to put it, because sometimes you will have to be able to recognize whichever macro you have recorded. So I just save this as collect. Done. Save. Now I have saved this macro. Now I can access it directly, from this top left control panel. Otherwise, because let's say next time when you launch the game, you can always access your recorded macro by going into the Game Genie, into the macro function. Then you can scroll down to look for the macro you have recorded previously, and then press start. And then now at this control panel we have 3 buttons. The first one is to lock screen, which is if you want to do the macro playback repeatedly and you don't want to waste your battery life on the screen itself, you can turn on the lock screen so that it will dim down the display but still run all your macro behind. And you can of course change the playback settings by changing how many times and how fast to playback the macro. So from here we just let it do infinite repeat, don't care, and then we just press play, and now you can see the phone is doing all the stuff I have recorded just now. Because since I set the repeat into infinite playback, so it will just keep on doing this on loop. So it really depends on how you want to design your macro to do your task in game. You can see you can do some complex command using this macro functionality, and then you just put it aside and then it will start do all the things. So to stop, it's quite easy. You just have to press it back, and then like I mentioned just now, just to demonstrate how the lock screen works, is that if you press the lock screen, it will turn on as a toggle switch. Then when you press play, it will say that it will try to run the macro in background mode. Just let it run. Then you can see the screen is now dim but all the commands is still running behind. In this mode, you can save your phone battery life without, sacrificing all the battery just because you want it to do something else on loop. So the next thing is slightly complicated, whereby you can use a mixture of macro to run the game. Okay, what does it actually mean? That you can combine multiple macro into a long list of macro work. For example, you want the game to do resource collection first, then fight enemy, and then claim resource. This kind of work. So you do 3 different records. Number 1, you do a resource collection. Then you save the resource collection. For example, I have saved multiple macros now. I have retire, select fleet 1 and fleet 2, and then I can use collect, I can use go, something like this. So from here, I can just straight away, let's say I want to first select fleet 1 and fleet 2, and then select go after they fight and finish the boss, and I can use it to retire some of the resources, or I can just simply put in the collect the resources or rewards from the battle. And then lastly, I can maybe use it to do some other things. You can see how this multiple macros actually works. It's like modular design for your macro. So because some of the games have long battles and something like that, but at most you will have a time frame whereby the battle will complete within a let's say 3 minutes. So I have a delay function as well. So I can put in a delay. Let's say of 3 minutes is 180 seconds. So I can put a delay in between different macros, so that when they run this command, send your unit to battle, 3 minutes later, then they will only execute the next command, which is to collect the resources. In this way, I can just save this as a, let's say, of course you have to name this as a mixture of macros. As always, you have the same command, you can set it, repeat how many times, how fast playback, lock screen mode or not. And of course, you can still edit your multiple macros even after you save it. So this is amazing for me. And what really escalate this kind of feature to the next level is the introduction of background mode. Background mode is amazing, bro. Whenever you launch a game, when it runs in foreground, you can control all the buttons and everything else. But the moment when you switch it to home screen, your game will put into a pause or resting state, whereby some of the touch and functionalities may not work. For example, in some games, when you switch to desktop or the home screen, the game will pause automatically for you. And sometimes you just want the game to continue fight the boss, because some of the games actually do have auto fight, auto farming is a thing in some games. So background mode helps in this. Let's send some of the girls to battle. Imagine if we send them to battle, when I enable background mode, okay, let's just not enable background mode for the first time. If I switch to home screen, you can see that when I go back into the game, they already paused the game for me. Of course, this is not something I want. Let's just turn on background mode for now. Of course, they will ask you whether you want to set time limit for it or not. For now, let's just ignore the time limit. Background mode has been activated. We continue the battle. And then we go back to home screen. And wait for a bit time, see whether if my fleet died or, I don't know, completed the battle.
1 hour later.
Oh, of course, you will also know the game is still running by looking at the notification. See? The running time is based on hours and minutes, not seconds. So I guess that is to save the CPU time. So let's go back into the game. Oh, actually we won the battle. So that's a demonstration on how it works for the background mode. And how background mode is so amazing because you can now use macro together with background mode. So let's just demonstrate by running one of the macros. I have, let's see, I did this retire. Okay, so if I choose, remember just now we have this lock screen mode. So when you play back the macro, it will ask you to run macro in background mode. Yes, this is exactly what we want. So allowing this, now they will lock the screen and you can see, I'm not sure if the camera is picking up what is happening at the back of the screen, but you can see the game is still doing something behind. And I can press the run in background. So now technically you can use your phone to do something else while the game is still running the macro behind, doing all the auto farming, auto resource collection, reward collection for you. And the best of all, you can still run a second game while your first game is still doing all the auto play behind. Let's just switch back to the previous game. As you can see, we are still in the lock screen mode and everything is still running behind. How cool is this? How cool is this? Actually, I'm just touching a very surface layer of the functionality over here. If you look at the macro building functionality, first thing first you will need to know is how to plan your macro design. For example, breaking down your commands into multiple chunks so that you can build it up afterwards, so that you can do a lot more complicated stuff. For example, a single button press of OK or cancel can be separated. Before I forget, macro mode has been around for many years. I'm not sure since ROG Phone 2 or ROG Phone, yeah, somewhere around there, but background mode was first introduced in ROG Phone 6. But to have macro mode and background mode working together only first appear on the ROG Phone 7, not even on the ROG Phone 6. I'm not too sure why ROG is putting this kind of limitation. Obviously, because this is just a software features, they can easily introduce a software update and send it to ROG Phone 5 or ROG Phone 6. Not sure what is the reason behind, but obviously, I mean, in terms of the commercial side, it is much more viable to keep exclusive features on the latest device. But for users, definitely it's not something they would like to see. And second thing I want to point out is that while macro mode can be extremely useful, but you will have to check the terms and conditions of your games. Some games, they don't allow you use third-party software to middle around with their games and so on. Sometimes because of the PvP and I mean anti-competitive kind of regulations, so you will have to be careful if you want to use this in your game. Some games, they might ban your ID because of this. So that's all I want to share with you about this macro functionality. I know this has been quite a long video, but it is a feature that I have not seen on many other phone brands, especially other gaming phones. This is the only phone feature that comes together inside the phone stock. You don't have to root, you don't have to install any weird third-party software. Everything is stock. Buy the phone, log in, and straight can use it. So if you have any questions, you can leave it down in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next video.